Welcome to West Virginia Commonplace. I am JR, your host, and I'm coming to you today with an episode called The Middle. We talk about the struggle of people coming from the ghetto, we talk about the issues of rich people, but we don't talk about the middle class. The middle class has the hardest job to facilitate to both the poor or the impoverished and the rich and wealthy. My father, Wilbur Sparrow, my mother, Rosalind Sparrow, they both grew up in what you call the lower middle class. That's the people that work hard. And I'm not saying that people that are low class don't work hard, but I'm talking about the people that work hard and get to the suburbs. They're able to leave what they had from their upbringing in the lower class and move to the middle class. Middle class, I'm not going to put a price tag or a salary on what middle class is, but it's the area where people are no longer renting. It's where people are buying their house. My father was a cylinder engraver for R.R. Donnelly, and he was a real estate agent at the same time. My mother, she worked for Liberty University. So my father took up many different things and many different traits. He worked at U-Haul sometime. Different things to keep us in the middle class. He worked till the day he died. And we were raised with values that you can get an education. It doesn't matter if you're in the trailer park where we started at, or you're living in that house in the middle class that he had us living in. You know, them houses was not cheap, 6-figure houses. So, I love hearing the grind of how people who didn't have nothing got to where they're going, but we don't talk about the middle class. We don't talk about the lower middle class, the upper middle class, or the middle of the middle class. That's something that people just take for granted and like, oh, he got a jump shot. I mean, his father got a good education, so he got that. Nah, my dad didn't get the greatest education. My dad just went out here, and when he was applying for jobs, he applied for the right things, and he learned tactical skills along the way that helped him become part of the middle class. And when we were in the middle class, like even when I was in school, I'm from a rural area. My high school is Rustburg High School. We had trailer park kids behind our subdivision, and then our subdivision led over into an even wealthier subdivision. And then if you circle around the backside, you was in another trailer park that was beside the well-to-do people. And then you had the hood in Lynchburg. And then Lynchburg had various areas where it's well-to-do and then it's impoverished areas. So I grew up around everything. If you went down the road, we went to the Section 8 projects. We went to Greenfield. We went out to these places. And, we had cousins that lived here because even in our family, not everybody was, as they said, privileged, but I never called it privilege because my daddy worked. And my daddy was gone a good portion of my life, making sure we had what we had. My mom was at work when we were at work. We weren't latchkey kids or anything like that, but sometimes my mom would be 5, 10, 20 minutes late to get home. So here's where the struggle comes in, and this is what they don't talk about. My father excelled with real estate, so he made money there. But he had to have another job, make it even better money as a cylinder engraver. So he was going to college, selling houses, and working at U-Haul on the weekends to provide a lifestyle that he wanted for both of his kids. And growing up, there was a divide because the poor kid said, "Oh, no, y'all not from the hood. Y'all from the trailer park, blah, blah, blah." We did start out in the trailer park. I remember what it was like living in a trailer. It was no different than living anywhere else. I've lived in apartments. I've lived in houses. The only thing I ain't never lived in is I've never lived on the road in a camper. I mean, I've lived in a hotel running around. Now, growing up, the emphasis with us was it wasn't about the struggle or the environment we were in because we chose what environment to be in. If I wanted to be with the kids that lived over in the Section 8, I went to the Section 8 and I hung out with them and we did whatever. If I wanted to be in the trailer park, I was with the trailer park. If I wanted to stay in the suburbs, me and the good old boys of the suburbs, we all got together and everybody in the sections, we got together, we played football, we played basketball, we did what we wanted to do. What separated us was when we went to school. Because in Virginia, and I will always say this that's great about my state of Virginia, is if you were a nuisance or you caused trouble in school, the first thing they tried to do is see if there was some kind of educational delay in certain cases with some people, or certain things or mental things, to see why you were acting out, why you were doing this and that. So a perfect example that I'm going to give y'all today is this. My father died in 1994. I did not know how to grieve. I lost the only person that I looked up to strongly. I love my mom to death, but I did not look up to her. I looked up to my dad for the things that he did, how he presented himself, and how he loved everybody. It didn't matter your race or nothing. So when he died, I didn't know how to grieve. I didn't know what to do with it. So I became cold. I started becoming a comedian because I had to hide behind the pain that I had of losing my dad at such a young age and not having that direction. The heartbreak that's heard around the world, as you know, with me, is when he died, I was just getting into Boy Scouts good. I had decided that's what I wanted to do. We were going to make a box car or the little slot car, and we never got to finish it. I still got his drawings on the piece of wood. But that's another story for another day. So I acted out, and my principal, Mary Watts, at Yellow Branch Elementary School, pulled me to the side and showed me statistics. She showed me what happens to people when they don't take care of themselves. And this is a child at 8 or 9 years old. She said, you can be this 1 in 4 in Virginia, or you can be one of the select few that actually pays attention to your education. Did I take her advice at first? From probably 4th grade up until 7th grade or so, I didn't care what she said, but I always remember what she told me. But when I got in 8th grade and I started playing sports a little bit better, was wrestling and different things like that, I paid attention to what she said. She said, and the one thing that she always said to me is, gain an education, gain an understanding of knowledge. Don't sit out here and be lackluster when it comes to being a person. She said there's going to be things that are going to be challenging because of your race. But if you carry yourself as a person that's clear, you don't worry about race, and you're genuine, people are going to respect you more. So that's what I did. I didn't take any of the stereotypes that was around me or the people around me, because I seen people with jump shots. I seen people that were educated. I seen both of them. Both fail when it came to the adult world. So I'm never going to tell anybody that just because you had a jump shot and you was good and you was the man in school that you couldn't have been educated. It's just the simple common sense. The common sense was lacking in a lot of people. So going further with this, being in the middle class, like people knew we had money. My father had died. I had money. You know, I was good to go. I could do what I want. But the price that I paid was I lost a mother at the same time, because my mom went crazy. She went loop. She went mental. So I didn't have her no more. I had to give her up so that I could have the money. I didn't want the money because I would have damn sure like had my mom back the way she was before my dad died. And that didn't happen. So inside the middle class, my mom was faking it till she made it inside the middle class. My mom didn't generate the type of money my dad did. And she did it for a while, got extra mortgages and did this and that. Kept us living good. Made sure that we both got through school. My sister Valen and myself. Kept us in the suburbs going to school. Well, when I got older, I wanted to run with the homies. I wanted to be out there in Greenfield and Rivermont, all the places that are the hood where I'm from. I wanted to see what that life was like. Didn't turn out too well. Ended up having to go do a little stint at Beaumont. That's a juvenile prison. And I did say a juvenile prison. Didn't kind of fare well after that either. Once again, I didn't pay attention to what Mary Watts told me about getting an education and not being a statistic. Got a little older, thought about it. Went to college, did different things like that. Still, even up until the age of 30, didn't pay attention to what she said. Then I started living in West Virginia and different things like that. I started surrounding myself with people, and I noticed that my education, my behavior, my mannerisms, and the things that I was given the greatest opportunity on earth, because there were people that were older than me that were lacking the education, knowledge, the know-how, and the common sense that I had. So then after that, I just went out here and started learning more about people, learning how this goes and that goes. And when I was out here doing my thing, I realized that, like, there was a lot of barriers that I just didn't look at, didn't even see, and I overcame them. So inside middle class, right? We get out here in our 30s, 20s, and 30s, start making a certain amount of money, and then the people that ran with us, that was doing whatever, they don't appreciate us. They don't like that I'm not hood enough. I dress a certain way. I wear certain types of clothes. my English has a certain twang to it, and my um, choice in words in the English language don't always translate to a hip hop or a theme that is African American. So they shut me down there. But in the middle class, like what I hate about race, being black or white, you always have to be on the fence because as a light skinned black man in America, people think that I get extra privilege because I can go between both races. Nah, it does not work like that. I work hard. I got the education. I did what I was supposed to do in this sense of I learned about finance. I learned about what I needed to do to be strong and to survive in this world. I learned a long time ago that there are certain situations that you can get yourself out of that will help you in the middle class. So these are things I learned about. It is not cool to be living in areas that have a lot of violence. You do have a choice in where you live because you dictate where you go, how you go, and what you do. There's no person on earth, unless you are crippled or even have some kind of disease that keeps you where you are. You can easily get out here and just do what you want to do. Now, the further I get into this, the more that I'm going to draw into race. And I'm going to say this. When I was in school, everybody had the opportunity, black, white, Chinese, Mexican, whatever you were, to get an education. People chose to disrupt class. People decided to think that they were taking the education away from someone else. And that's why people didn't learn where I was from. Because you had these people that just, because of ailments or whatever was going on that wasn't diagnosed or wasn't taken care of, these people tried to take the education away from us. And I learned a long time ago that these comedians and these people joking in class, I learned this, like I said, from Mary Watts, that they were doing this. And it wasn't nothing ever race related because I ran through every circle that I could to keep myself versatile. And as I got older, I realized that, hey, you fit into a certain type of crowd. So this is where you might want to live. So I realized that in West Virginia, I'm country, sophisticated at the same time, but the standard of living where I live is very low. And I like to travel and I do other jobs. I mean, I did work in state for a long time, but I travel and make my money everywhere else where all these other people live. So living in West Virginia is fine because when I am home, I live peacefully and I'm taken care of. But that kind of logic I didn't get out here in the streets or anything like that. That was something that I learned in school. You got to live somewhere where the standard of living is just a little low if you want to have better than others. If I lived in California or something, I might have a different motto or something. But anywhere around the Mid-Atlantic that's not a big city, yes, I have the education and the knowledge for that. Now, spinning all this back to the middle class, my father and them would have to, and this goes to the prosperity of my family, and that's uncles and aunts. Everybody started attaining wealth and started doing this and that and went further with it. And that was what made us all embrace the middle class. Because my family that lived in Amherst County, even though that's rural country, all them fools got money. Because they went out here and they worked in the woods, drove tractor trailers, and everybody learned finance. Finance is what makes the middle class. You got to learn when you can't indulge. Like, you can't be out here doing all this bling bling and all this extra stuff. Because even to this day, I'm not flashy like that. And these are the misconceptions that, like, when I go out and I used to visit Greenfield and these places, everybody would have on like $300-400 Jordans and have the expensive Motorola Razr. They didn't have a generic one. They had like the V3M Motorola Razr, and stuff like that, or have the most expensive iPhone, but choose to live where they live. So, the other identity crisis inside the middle class is that you do feel like that you got to get back to the hood. You got to get back to the trailer park. You got to get back to the people that didn't go with you all the way up the ladder. And then when you're doing that, you don't want that to be seen by the people that is above you in wealth and stuff like that, because you don't want them thinking that you're trying to do philanthropy in the hood. And then the hood takes on their own connotation of who you are just because you go to work and do this, and that to achieve what you have. So then you got to think about, am I going to worry about that? So when you're in that lower middle, until you get to the middle of the middle class, them some hard things that you got to go through. Because I hear people talking about like in poverty and different things like that. That yeah, they had to struggle because they didn't have food for this and that. Well, it happens with the people in the middle class because they got to pay for the mortgage. They got to pay these bills and put money into this and that, or they are going to fall short and shy of keeping what they got. And people say, "Oh, that's a luxury." No, it's not a luxury. If you got to have food, shelter, and all that other stuff. The only difference between someone being in poverty and somebody being in middle class is the direction and how they got to where they are and the motivation that keeps them going. Because I know many people. I know a lady that has worked at McDonald's for over 25 years, and she's stacking and doing better than anybody else. Yes, she is a manager now, like big time manager, but she stuck it out with McDonald's and went from trailer to apartment to a home. Maybe a different progression in how she got there, but she stuck with it and she moved herself from the low class to the middle class to the middle of the middle class. And eventually she'll probably go high class, but that's another story, another time for someone that's up there. I ain't up there, so I can't tell you that. So once again, I want to thank y'all guys for listening to West Virginia Commonplace. And the reason that I did this episode, The Middle, is because I want to talk about things that matter and things that show that we are all human, but we all have a struggle story to tell. It's not just poor people and rich people that have these stories. The middle class has a burden that they have to keep the middle alive so that the poor can come up and the rich can come back down if they don't stay rich. So the middle, to me, is the hardest place you can be inside of our social caste system. If you disagree with me, let me know over at wvuncommonplace.com. This is one of them episodes that I've been wanting to do for a while, and I really, really appreciate everybody that gets involved with us. And it's been a joy doing this podcast. You'll see Stacy back real soon. Thank you very much.